All right, in this lesson we're going to be looking at fractions. So the top part of the fraction is called the numerator. The bottom part is called the denominator. Simplified fractions exist whenever the numerator and the denominator have no common factor other than 1. An improper fraction is a fraction in which the numerator is a bigger number than the denominator. To change a mixed number to an improper fraction, you multiply the whole number in the front by the denominator and then add the numerator. And then you put that result over the denominator. For example, 3 4/5, you would multiply 3 times 5 to get 15, add 4 to get 19, and that fraction written as an improper fraction would be 19 over 5. When adding and subtracting fractions, you want to first determine the lowest common multiple of the denominators, also known as the lowest common denominator. Then you'll multiply the numerator and denominator by the same number to get that LCD. And then you'll add the whole numbers if you have a mixed number, or you can just should probably change the mixed numbers to improper fractions. And then add the numerators and the denominators stay the same. Whenever you're adding two numbers that have the same sign, you want to add them and then keep the sign of both numbers. Whenever you're adding two numbers with different signs, you want to subtract them and keep the sign of the bigger number. When you're subtracting two numbers, you want to change the subtraction to addition and then change the sign of the second number. Once you've done that, you want to follow the instructions for adding two integers on the previous slide. Multiplying fractions, you want to change the mixed numbers to improper fractions, and then you want to multiply the denominators straight across, multiply the denominators straight across. You can also cancel whatever you can cancel. Whenever you're multiplying two negatives, that will result in a positive. Multiplying two positives also results in a positive. Multiplying two numbers with different signs results in a negative. When you're dividing fractions, you want to take the reciprocal of the fraction you're dividing by, and then you want to change the the division symbol to a multiplication. So take the reciprocal of the second number, you're flipping the second fraction, and then changing the division to multiplication, and then you carry out the same steps as the previous slide for multiplication. All right, first example. First thing we want to do to add these two fractions, change that second fraction to an improper fraction. We multiply the 2 times 2 to get 4. 4 plus 1 is 5. So negative 2 1/2 is the same thing as negative 5 over 2. Now we want a common denominator. The lowest common multiple of those two denominators, 4 and 2, is 4. So we have to multiply that 2 by 2 in order to get 4, the LCD. So we're going to multiply the numerator and the denominator of that fraction by 2. When we do, we get negative 10 over 4. Now that we have a common denominator, we can just add the numerators. 1 plus negative 10 is, we're adding two numbers with different signs, so we're going to subtract them, keep the sign of the bigger number. 10 minus 1 is 9. And the bigger number is negative, so our fraction should be negative. And again, the denominator just stays the same. You have to have a common denominator before you add fractions. All right, so we want to do the same thing for this example. We want to first change that mixed number to an improper fraction. So we multiply 3 by 3 and then add 1 to get 10 over 3. And then now we want a common denominator. The lowest common denominator, or the lowest common multiple of the denominators, is 12. So we're going to have to multiply the first fraction by 4, and we're going to have to multiply the second fraction by 3's. Once we do that, we should get 40 over 12 for the first fraction, and then negative 3 over 12 for the second fraction. And now we have we're subtracting two integers, two numbers. So now we want to change the subtraction to addition and change the sign of the second number. So 40 minus negative 3 is the same thing as 40 plus positive 3, which is 43, over 12. And this is simplified because there's no number other than 1 that we can divide evenly into 43 and into 12. Now for dividing, again, we want to start by changing the mixed number to an improper fraction. So 2 times 10 is 20, plus 1 is 21. So 2 1/10 is the same thing as 21 over 10. Now we want to change that division to multiplication and take the reciprocal of the second fraction. So now we've got negative 3 over 2 times 10 over 21. Again, we changed division to multiplication and then took the reciprocal of the second fraction. Now we can cancel anything. We can cross cancel. 3 and 21 have a GCF, a greatest common factor of 3, so we can divide 3 into 3 and 21. 3 goes into 3 one time, into 21 7 times. And 2 and 10 also have a common factor, 2, so we can divide 2 into 2 and 2 into 10. 2 goes into 2 one time, 2 goes into 10 5 times. 1 times 5 is 5. 1 times 7 is 7. And then we have a negative times a positive, so our result will be negative. And lastly, we've got a multiplication, multiplying two fractions. So we want to first change that mixed number to an improper fraction. 1 times 8 is 8, plus 7 is 15. So 1 7/8 is the same thing as 15 over 8, times negative 13 over 9. 15 and 9, we can divide 3 into both of those numbers. 3 goes into 15 3 times, 3 goes into 9 3 times. 5 times negative 13 is going to be negative 65. 8 times 3 is 24.